Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Talk with Walt. Today we're going to be talking about something that the deputies deal with every day, law enforcement officers around the country deal with every day. We're talking about domestic violence. Joining me today is the Sheriff of Leon County, Walt McNeil.
Good afternoon. Good evening, I should say.
And one of our victims advocates, Maria Folsom.
Hello.
We appreciate y'all making it. So in Leon County, we average about, in the last 3 years, we've averaged about 8,000 calls, and it's countywide, including city numbers, about 8,000 calls or more per year over the last 3 years. And out of those calls, about 30%, a little over 30%, we write reports, which means there's an actual allegation of physical violence that's occurred. Sheriff, talk to us a little bit about some of the training that we go through as deputies and what we're doing to curb it.
Well, first, Dave, the big concern I have with domestic violence, to put it in proper perspective, I every morning when I come to work at about 6 or 7 o'clock, I'm on the road coming in, and invariably, almost on a daily basis, I will hear a dispatch call to either Tallahassee Police Department or to the Leon County Sheriff's Office, where we're responding to a domestic violence call. When you start talking about the numbers you just mentioned, that's a huge impact on our resources within the context of our responding to calls for service. And then when you talk about, in many of these instances you're talking about a family where there's perhaps a husband and wife or a significant other of opposite gender, or sometimes same gender. But there's also children involved in those circumstances. And one of the things that we know about domestic violence, particularly when children are involved, is that those children are traumatized. They see horrific violence taking place between adults. And I mean, one of the things that bothers me so much about this is, can you think about you're at a child in a home where your mom, your dad, the people that you care most about in the world are in a combatant situation, and let's say, and I've seen these circumstances where knives and baseball bats are used, and these kids are sitting there watching that, and they become traumatized. We talk about post-traumatic stress for folks in the military, but can you imagine what takes place in homes all across Leon County each and every day? The same kind of traumatic trauma involving children. And then one of the things we're doing in the Leon County Sheriff's Office is we recognize this impact that it has not only on that child, but it has an impact on our community. So this child who just witnessed this thing on, let's say, a Friday night, and perhaps we get there on a Sunday or a Saturday, and we take the father or whomever the aggressor is and put them in jail. Well, that child on Monday morning gets up and gets on a bus and comes to school or goes to school. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to, as best we can, to identify those circumstances, those families, and then to try to pass that information on to the schools so that the schools are better prepared to deal with little Johnny when he or she gets to school on Monday, and the teachers are kind of freaking out, like, what's going on with this child? He or she used to be very talkative, very engaged, very in a learning environment, but now that child is sitting there and perhaps not communicating. And so what we tried to set up through our school resource deputies and working with our victim advocates is to try to set up a circumstance where that information about what's taking place with that family, being responsible for HIPAA information and being concerned about making sure we keep the identity of the child obviously taken care of. But we've got to make sure that we have some interdictions with that child, and that's where our victim advocates and the school resource deputies are playing a huge role in trying to bring some redress to what I think is a tremendous problem in our community.
And one of the things that I learned, doing a little bit of research, and when you work here, but when you really sit down and find out how much the victim advocates do, talk a little bit about, you guys actually go into some of those schools and you help try to match up programs to help out kids that are going through it. Tell us a little bit about that.
We work with the school resource deputies that are at the schools. So when the cases are made, the list is sent out to the schools where the resource officers are located, and then they make sure that the school is made aware that there may be a potential problem. Let's make sure that this child is getting services, and then we do a follow-up making sure that if there's any additional resources that are needed, that we're available. We reach out, especially if there is a case, we reach out to the parents to the mother and father, whoever the victim was, and just talk to them and understand that they don't have to do this alone. We're here for them. Any part of the process, we can help you through it all. If you need to get an injunction, we can help you with that. None of it you have to do alone. And we do it to make sure they know we're not judging them, whatever their decision may be, that we're just here to help them every step of the way and to educate them on what's going to happen next. It's overwhelming. The process can be very intimidating. You guys show up in uniforms and it can stop people from talking. And then we come in, they kind of relax a little bit, and we don't have to jump into, we're not investigators, so I'm not trying to get information on the case, I'm just trying to help you step by step. And sometimes I may need to stop you and just say, let's breathe a little bit. Let's not talk about anything else, let's just breathe. And then let's get back into the, let's help the detective get the information to help your case. So we help it step by step. We're the first responders of the victim advocate level.
So, and Sheriff, I know that we have a lot of community partners that we work with this, not only through our Victims Advocate Unit, but we also have the deputies and try to go through like CCYS. What are some of the important things that we do and that we help out just with our deputies and with the Victims Advocate Unit to make sure that, one, we're trying to help on the back end, but we're also trying to help prevent a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave, and perhaps one of the most important questions. I'm often kind of, historically in law enforcement, we've responded to these circumstances, and we've gone through all these iterations over time, and we were really terrible about this about 20 years ago in terms of how we responded to domestic violence situations. And we didn't do so well, and quite honestly, still trying to convey to persons in relationships, what's a wholesome relationship? What does a wholesome relationship look like? What are the expectations between two people who are engaged in a relationship, whether it's a marital one or if it's dating or whatever that might be? And one of the things I think our victim advocates do a great job with is trying to identify and say to those persons in dating situations, what can you do yourself? What are the signs of a person who is more likely to engage in domestic violence? Can you talk about that?
Well, communication is huge. You have to be able to communicate. If you're angry, you don't have to talk about that issue right then and there. Go ahead and walk away, come back at it the next day to talk about whatever the issue may be. If you talk in anger, that's when things can explode a little bit faster. Is red flags I look for, talk to people about, is there a lot of jealousy exhibited? Do you have privacy? Are they always looking to see what you're doing? Do you have any independence away from this person? Like, do you hang out with friends? Or isolation, that is a huge one. If you're always feeling isolated because they say they put more into a relationship, why don't you stay with me? You don't need to hang out with your friends. That's a red flag to me. And I try to educate them that it's okay to have friends. It's okay to be out and about away from your significant other. As long as you're communicating, then you got a healthy relationship. There's got to be trust. There's got to be a level of privacy. So we talk about red flags to look for, and then what to do with it. There's resources available. There's counseling you can get. You can, go for you. Make sure that you feel good about yourself and in the situation. But we just try to offer those.
What do we do about the batterer now? As I understand it, about 80% of the batterers are male, I believe. That's about right. So just assuming, again, using the 80%, since that's the vast majority, what kind of prevention discussions do we have with the potential batterers and circumstances that we come across?
There are batter intervention programs and anger management programs. I don't normally communicate with the batterer, however. When I'm working on a case, I'm working solely with the victim. That is my role. My role is to make sure that they handle the process so they're not alone, because they've got big decisions to make. They've got families to raise. I don't need them to worry about what the other person's going to be doing right then and there. But we do have people in the community that we can tell, there are programs available for your significant other or your, whoever wants to help the batterer. But I don't go into the case working with them.
Yeah, what's the role of refuge house? Talk about the...
Oh, that's one of our greatest resources in Tallahassee. They offer shelter. If you need to get away and you don't have any other place, you have to, you meet with them, and they have qualifications, but they have shelter, They have a 24-hour crisis hotline. They offer free counseling, which is fantastic. So you can call them and get some counseling, but you can also meet them in the process. For those who are trying to escape, there's money available to leave, and you have to work through Refuge House. So you have to have a report with us, and then work with Refuge House, but then you can get away. So it's all kinds of programs. They're just a massive resource that we offer all the time to our victims.
So a victim who is there with the child we talked about earlier, and if it's a reference to Refuge House, do they have facilities to take in the wife, if you will, or the victim and the children as well? Is that?
Yes, they do house the victim and the victim's children as a place to go if you need a place.
Okay.
One of the other things that I found out going through all this is we started Invest about 4 or 5 years ago here at the Sheriff's Office. And Invest, talk a little bit about what Invest is and how the Sheriff's Office, I know that having been a detective, there was 2 detectives specifically that were involved with following up on suspects, as we were talking about, or making sure there was no contact. Because whenever a batterer is arrested, there's a no contact order put in place. But what other steps do we use with Invest to help make victims more comfortable and to help them get out of the situation if they want to?
It's a nice connection between Refuge House and law enforcement, where we come together as a team in the community, working together to make sure that if there's a potential lethal situation, we're trying to prevent that from happening. So we get together as a group, we meet monthly, and we talk about are we matching what's needed in our community. We reach out to those survivors, and we make sure that they're getting the assistance that they need. It's very proactive, hands-on, interactive, and I think it's very successful in our community.
And we also work with the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council as well,
Yes.
doing teen rallies,
Yes.
making sure that, and then starting on the healthy relationships part of it, I'm actually going to be giving a presentation tomorrow to about 75 to 100 teens at Godby High School about healthy relationships and social media and how that goes. So that's one of the ways that the Sheriff's Office does step forward. Also, the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. We talked a little about that. It was something I was unaware of until we started getting into this. Tell me a little about that.
So we call it DVCC. It is a great group of people, of all advocates from all agencies that come together. And we unite, and teen rallies is one of the things we come up with. It's a preventative measure. We do workshops. We can each teach teens to be a peer teen and learning about healthy relationships. So, because sometimes teens don't want to come to adults, but they'll go to another teen. So that we're training future teens on how to help each other. We can even also go into and help parents. If you have a group and parents want to know some red flags, DVCC can go in and talk to parents about these are some red flags of unhealthy relationships that you may be seeing in your teen. So DVCC does all these trainings. We also have, together with them, Victims' Rights Week. We have a big event that comes in April. We have like a week-long stuff so that people are aware that we have victims in their community and they deserve to be respected, and we need to be available to help them.
Absolutely. So, Sheriff, I know that you do a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Clubs here, and you're actually one of the board members. I know that there's a lot that you do to mentor as well. Talk a little bit about healthy relationships and kind of what you do to help out with those healthy relationships to teach them at an early age.
Well, I work, I say work, but I'm one of the 100 black men of Leon County. And one of the things we try to do, I asked the question about what do we do with potential batterers, since 80% are male, not to say that young persons are more prone or not to be involved in domestic violence, but one of the things we try to do is to try to talk to young men about what does it mean to be a man? What are the ways that you treat a lady? How do you treat, obviously you should treat everybody with respect, but particularly in dating situations and relationships, we talk about, as you just mentioned, anger management and trying to make sure that you're respectful and not in a situation where you think the other person's subservient to you because you're a male. And I think that has been somewhat successful in our community, trying to get that, and we're trying to make sure we can get that same message, not only through organizations like that, but through our schools as well. I think perhaps one of the most important things that we're doing, in my estimation, is to try to focus on the kids who are traumatized in our communities. I think the number of persons who are dealing with trauma, and we're trying to work with our mental health providers in our community, trying to make sure that this whole notion of trauma and the impact that trauma has on crime in our community, you know, I don't have any specific data that would prove that trauma and domestic violence plays a huge role in our crime rate, but I am convinced anecdotally that it's occurring. And one of the things that we have to do, in my opinion, is to have those conversations, not only with our males, but with people in our community in general. And that's why this forum here this afternoon is so important, that we get the message out to folks in our community about domestic violence and relationships, that it is not healthy at all in our community for relationships to result in violence against the other person, that we've hopefully as human beings, we've evolved beyond the fact that we have to hit somebody because we disagree with their position, or that we want to take control of a person because we perceive them to be weaker than we are. And that's the message we're trying to get out through the various organizations I'm involved in as relates to interactions with males in our community.
Right, I think we've also learned over the years that, I mean, this type of behavior is a learned behavior, and it becomes generational as it continues. So, I mean, if you don't have that positive role model somewhere along the lines trying to teach what a healthy relationship is to both halves of it. And, you know, and you work the street, I've worked the street, and when you look at it, you see how some of these kids are in that situation and they try to look for other places. They're trying to find that family. They're trying to find someone they can reach out to and feel wanted and feel loved.
Yeah, I've had conversations with young persons. You know, I have the responsibility of working in prison setting as well. So I've had opportunity to talk to kids, and I mean kids who are incarcerated. And I talk to them about, how did you get here? What were the environments that you came from that resulted in your being incarcerated? And invariably, when they talk to me about that, they can talk and go back to a point in time where they were a little person, a little boy, a little girl, and they witnessed these horrific events taking place in their homes. Some of those horrific events involve drug use, and all too often, drug use, alcohol abuse, and domestic violence often go hand in hand. And so if we get the message out to our community about healthy relationships, about the importance of being respectful to each other, and particularly, I don't want to make it sound like males are the only ones who are involved in domestic violence, but particularly 80% though are males. So if we can get the point across to young men about being respectful in their relationships and their interaction with females, I think it'll go a long way towards resolving some of these issues and reducing our crime in our community.
And I think one of the important things that we can get out through the end of this is that if you feel like you're in a situation you want to get out of, we're here to help. We have several deputies that obviously work the road all the time. Our Victims Advocate Unit, if you feel like you're stuck in a place and you want to get out of it, call up, ask for the Victims Advocate Unit. Let us know what we can do to help you, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I am just delighted in the job that you guys do in the Victim Advocate Unit, and to see where we've evolved from over the years, and the number of, what's our caseload like?
A lot. We're a 24-hour unit, so we get called out. We're on scene too, and then we get the cases that come in. So we're just constantly working. Like, I had walk-ins today, I had a call out today, and then we got cases coming. So it's just constant, and then we're a huge part of the community, interacting with other advocates. And so our caseload's busy, but it's a good job that we're doing, and you can see that people need us there and they appreciate it. So it's an amazing unit to be in.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the job you guys do.
So one of the ways that we get into this, and one of the things I think we should probably get into, is if someone's in a violent relationship, and from the Victims Advocate Unit, we talked about this the other day when you and I were sitting down, what should a potential victim or a victim that feels like they're trapped, what should they do? What kind of plan should they have in place?
Right. The first thing that I do when I talk to somebody is safety planning. And that's where it's very important if you're talking to somebody not to be judgmental towards them. So they may stay in a relationship that you and I would not stay in, but for whatever reason, they're staying in a relationship. So I safety plan with them on the fact that they're staying there. Things like, you need to have a bag ready, and in that bag have clothes, money, and make copies of important documents, or put important documents in there and stash it away. You want to back your car in, have your car full of gas, because if you need to go, you need to just go. That's if you're living with somebody who's an abuser. But then we can also plan if you're starting to leave. That is the most lethal time, is when somebody's leaving an abusive relationship. It's the most dangerous time. So I usually ask them, does the abuser have access to guns? I need to know that so we can be very, very cautious of how you're going to leave, because you don't want that abuser to know. You got to be as stealth and quiet as possible because it's dangerous. And then we got to follow your surroundings, change locks if you're staying in a place, or go somewhere else that they have no idea where you could possibly be. And then, do you realize a lot of people don't leave a relationship because of pets? So I talk to them about pets, what to do with your pet, you know? A lot of people, they love, it's like they're furry babies, and they won't leave if they feel like, and we recommend don't leave an animal, because an abuser will hurt a pet. So find a friend or a neighbor, and always, if you can, talk to neighbors. There are those eyes around. If you have children, talk to them about what to do if they need to leave the house. And you don't want to say, in case so-and-so gets violent, just say, if we have an emergency, this is what I want you to do. You don't want to scare them, but you want them prepared at the same time. So it's a lot of safety planning. And then I talk to people with dealing with violation of injunctions. So they're living in their home, and the person is violating the injunction. Is your home safe enough? Do all your windows lock? All your doors lock? Shrubbery from the windows? Did you realize that people can hide behind that? Do you have motion detector lights? So I go into a lot of detail of thinking about how to stay safe, whether you're staying home or whether you're going to leave, or if you have children or pets. So
That is very detailed. Wow, I am impressed.
Oh, good.
I didn't know we did all those things. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Well, Sheriff, would you like to share some final thoughts with our audience before we go?
Well, I first of all, thank you. I am delighted that you're here, and we have the opportunity to speak to the audience out there. I wanted to have this segment on domestic violence because I believe it is a tremendous problem in our community. And I believe it's one of those problems that we can all do something about. I think one of the major things that I think you guys talk about is education.
Yes.
That we have to educate our community about domestic violence. That it shouldn't be one of those, I know when I first started in law enforcement, it was one of those things that spouses were quite honestly expected to tolerate and just deal with. And I think some of that still exists, but perhaps not as much as it did in previous years. But getting the message out that, and I think people can understand that the trauma that's occurring with respect to children in our community impacts the quality of life that we have in Tallahassee. It adds to our crime problem. And if we can have a dialogue around this. Now, we've got domestic violence week coming up, a month coming up, is that right? Or
we have Victims' Rights Week coming up, and we're going to be doing a lot of activities to support.
And we want to encourage the citizens of Leon County to be engaged. April?
April 7th through the 13th. We've got things planned. That's tentative, but keep an eye out. Shonda and crew are going to be posting everything that we're doing. We're going to be doing giveaways too, so to participate. But it's all about educational, and it's all about awareness, and then how the community can help.
Well, I can't impress upon the folks of Leon County enough that this is an issue that impacts us all. And it's a problem that I think we can all galvanize our efforts and our resources around and work towards eradicating to the point that we can domestic violence in our community and in our nation. And it's extremely important to me, and I hope it's equally important to our audience and the people here in Leon County.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us for this edition of A Talk with Walt. We'll see you next time.